Hello, divine beings. Welcome to the other side. This is your host, Saint M3F Day, they, them pronouns. And today I'm going to be doing a trauma recovery series. And for those of you who are new here, because I'm feeling that there were a lot, I healed myself from 15 plus chronic illnesses that were primarily due to the trauma that I experienced as a child, as well as intergenerational trauma and some soul trauma that I carried in with me in terms of my karma. And I did that in over the past 13 years as I tried to figure it out outside of the Western medical industry. And I fully completed my ascension journey in unity with Source. So along the way, I've received many certifications and whatnot, a master's, um, and many other holistic healing modalities. I'm also a high priestess, so I speak from an integrative perspective that integrates the mind, body, and spirit and soul around holistic healing and spirituality, merging science and spirituality together. So, as always, I'm going to open up this space first to set the clear intention that I'm a clear, pure channel of the highest light, the highest love, the highest truth, and source for the collective today to bring forth clarity, guidance, and information and wisdom as I channel. Thank you, spiritual team, for helping me remain in energetic integrity and sovereignty. And I set this space now. I will be channeling pure source energy from the 16th dimension. So if you choose to receive this energy, simply say yes in your heart. You are always at choice. If you choose at any time to not receive it or to start receive it, say yes or no in your heart. And this is just getting you in practice and affirming your energetic boundaries and to learn and exercise your energetic sovereignty. Beautiful. So today I'm going to be talking about my experience with dissociative disorders. That's one of the things I experienced in terms of mental health. And we're going to be tapping into the Akashic records and straight channeling from source about these dissociative disorders. So primarily I want to talk the three that are going to be coming up, but it's mainly the first two are dissociative identity disorder, which was formerly known as multiple personality disorder. And the other was depersonalization and derealization, which one can think of as dissociation or seeing or experiencing their self as separate or detached from their being or experience. And the other one, the last one, is dissociative amnesia, which in my experience was associated with the trauma of, forgetting certain time periods in the past, not remembering certain experiences in my life when I was a kid. And, you're separating yourself and forgetting aspects of yourself or the past. It could be a little, it could be a lot. So I'm going to talk about myself first and, just tell y'all, I share openly about my history and background, what I've experienced in terms of my trauma and the experiences from, being raised in a low income neighborhood in relative poverty as a first generation immigrant with parents who were heavily traumatized themselves and passed that trauma down to me, verbal, mental, physical abuse, a sexual abuse I experienced at the hands of family members and others externally, and then being groomed by a mentor for years in my high school, and then all that unfolding into experiencing the same people into other relationships and toxic, dysfunctional, toxic, abusive relationships, and so on and so forth. And then also the ancestral trauma of being just and current, being in a, I wouldn't say current, actually. Let me reverse that. I don't experience that. It's more of being in a Black female body, being in a society that at large doesn't respect that, but is, in my reality, it's all Gucci. So I'm going to stop that there, though, because I don't want to get into my reality versus not my reality. But the point being that growing up was rough, and I experienced a lot of bullying on top of all of that. You know, being in an environment that was just not healthy, physical and home environments. And so I experienced a lot of trauma and had to learn how to heal myself external. And so what I want to say is, right, my experiences around dissociative disorders was one where I had to, when I was a kid, detach myself from what I was experiencing because it was just so much. I couldn't process it on my own as a kid. I didn't have the tools to. And so I learned as a child to dissociate. I learned to put myself into my inner world and what I thought at the time was an imaginary world, but now realize that that was actually a spiritual realm with my spiritual team who actually raised me, I like to say, and experience reality from this very disembodied state. You know, being in my body and being as a child and when I was younger was so painful. And so I had learned as a kid to stuff these emotions down and then detach from my physical existence. And so I'd often experience this interesting state of being there but not being there, of wanting to feel alive but not feeling alive. Where in the past it seemed like the world wasn't real. And now I realize that that was really tapping into the existence, because for those who are on the spiritual path, you can get to a place of such detachment where the world doesn't feel real. It feels like an illusion. And that's because this is an illusionary experience. So that is the truth. And so talking and touching on that, actually, I want to talk about what's actually happening from that spiritual energetic perspective, from a higher perspective from source. And I just mentioned like the detachment, that when you detach to such an extent from your being, you begin to exist in the world as more of an energy spirit versus an energy human. And source is using these words very specifically through me to be clear that we are all energy. Energy is all there is. Energy is everything. Matter, physical matter, is merely a matter of energy being more densely packed and thus more visible than other energies that are vibrating at a higher rate. And so in the case of, let's say, actually dissociative amnesia, no. Okay, Spirit says yes. Dissociative amnesia, where one is forgetting parts of their experiences, it is akin to, let's say you imagine a circle of energy, a ball of energy, right? That ball of energy experiences something that is so painful, like a wound that is so painful that that part of the ball of energy that experiences that wounding breaks off. And it is attached by this thin string of energy. So now you have the ball of energy with a part of it missing, attached to a thin string of energy to the part that was wounded. This is an example of what is happening when you experience a traumatic experience that is so difficult for you to process, or that may not be completely processed or resolved within your being, and you detach yourself from it. And in detaching yourself from it, you forget it. You push it away so far away. And then this becomes a soul fragment. And this is what, and in the process of the soul fragmenting, when your energy fragments in this way, you essentially leave a part of your soul, your energy in the past. It thus becomes a part that has been kind of blotted out. But it's not blotted out, right? Because it's still attached by that thin string. So this is where soul retrieval comes in, where you begin to retrieve parts of yourself that have been so thoroughly detached. Like that string is like 5 miles away from you, you know, that's very far. And you, in the process of soul retrieval, it's calling back those parts of your energy, because you are all energy across 7 subtle energy bodies from the Vedic perspective. You're calling those parts of yourself back. You're retrieving your energy back. And as you retrieve it, memories come back. Because the closer and closer and closer that fragmented part of your energy from that ball gets to the actual entirety of the ball, and then becomes eventually remelded into the ball, the more you begin to remember, the more you begin to feel what you happened to you, the less the dissociative amnesia is there. And this leads into this experience of depersonalization and derealization. Now I'm being called to enter the Akashic records. Give me a second. I need to calibrate. Beautiful. So I'm looking at the Akashic records, sources guiding me to look at the collective consciousness regarding the experience of depersonalization and derealization. And what I'm seeing and what I'm being shown is they're saying the experience is akin to you imagine a person holding a balloon, and that balloon is floating, a helium balloon is floating above them. In this case, source is saying the astral subtle body is, which resides in your heart chakra. It resides in your heart space. Your astral body is your connection to your heart. This is the center of your being. And so your astral subtle body, in the cases of depersonalization and derealization, leaves the physical body. The astral body is also what's responsible for things like astral traveling or out-of-body experiences. And so when it detaches from by detach, right? Everything's always attached. But again, the string analogy, you're holding the balloon, and the helium balloon is your astral body. When it detaches from the physical body, you experience depersonalization and derealization. You begin to see yourself as you are looking at yourself from the outside in. It is the same akin to if you hear about other out-of-body experiences or astral traveling experiences, when someone leaves their body and they're looking down at their body. This is what's happening from a spiritual, energetic perspective. Your heart, the heart, Spirit is guiding me back. Okay, let's finish up on the astral body experience. Your heart is the center of your spiritual being. It is the center of your being, period. And when you experience extreme traumatic experiences, and there are imprints within your being that impact your subtle energy bodies, especially your astral subtle body, this can float outside of your physical body. Now, I mentioned that those who experience out-of-body experiences, who astral travel, this is what you're actually experiencing. The astral body leaving your physical body, and you being able to see your physical body from the astral perspective. And this occurs because your heart is the center. Your heart is the center of is associated with the element of air. But it is the central point of how you connect to your soul, how you connect and feel the feelings of love, unconditional love, the higher vibrational energies of love and peace and joy and all of that. Yes, it can come through the crown chakra when you are connected to pure source. And it also can come through one's connection to the soul and to the heart. That feeling center, which is a bit different from the sacral, which is the associated with your emotional body. This is how you feel. We're not talking about emotions, we're talking about the feeling of sensations, bodily sensations. And so traumatic imprints, when they're not adequately resolved energetically, can cause that sensation of separation from the astral and the physical body, because it becomes, on an energetic level, incompatible to be in one's body energetically because of the pain, because of the hurt. Incompatible is, we're talking about on an energetic level, y'all. And so that floating sensation, or that sensation of experiencing life from as if it was an illusionary experience, is thus when that individual becomes the observer of all that is experiencing itself. This is one of the reasons why those who may experience depersonalization, derealization, don't feel as grounded in reality. And so the remedy, the medicine here, is to become grounded within and embodied in one's body through a connection to the earth. By rooting and grounding into one's body, this also prevents other energies from and entities, especially because the vibration of trauma is low density. These are dense. This is a dense energetic experience. And so that energy is going to be attracting it, because this is the heart space and your heart is magnetic. It is going to be attracting experiences, energies into one's life that can then become settled into that body. And so if one is not properly grounded into their body, into their human experience, another energy or entity can walk in. And this nicely segues into the experience of dissociative identity disorder. In the case of DID, humans are multidimensional beings. And have in their mental bodies, which is associated with your solar plexus and one's ego, many thought forms that create different aspects of identity. For example, one can say that they are a student or a parent or an artist or a scientist. These are all correlated with energetic thought forms that comprise of the ego and that exist in the mental body, the mental subtle body, and the solar plexus. And so as within, so without. If you can imagine that you can hold many identities within your being, many aspects, then when you look without, this also is mirrored in the ability of humans to have multidimensional awareness and identity. Source is taking me now to the Akashic Records for dissociative identity disorder. I'm looking at the collective consciousness regarding those who fit the description of having this disorder or have been labeled with this disorder, claim this disorder. Source is telling me 30%, well, 31.8%. 30%, we're rounding down. With DID are actually switching between their multidimensional aspects. When I was awakening as a starseed, I became aware that I existed in many places at once. That yes, I'm incarnated as a soul in this body, but my higher self or oversoul, depending on how you see or the delineation of souls, has other incarnations across space, time, realities, and dimensions that are all me, that are all my soul, because we originate from this same higher self. And so the process of coming and embodying one's higher self is actually the integration of all multidimensional selves across space, time, dimensions, worlds, and realities. A person can have a soul that is in the human body, originating from an oversoul that is incarnated into a tree, into in a different planet, a mermaid, into a animal, a tiger, into a dragon, and so on and so forth. And these different beings all have different characteristics and personalities, as well as being incarnated into other human lives. Since time is collapsed on top of itself, time is not linear, it is circular, and it exists past, present, and future all exist now. It all is happening now. And so this 30% is actually tapping into these other versions of themselves that exist in other carnations, past, present, parallel, lifetimes, human and non-human. And it's as if a switch is being turned on, and they're tapping in, and their consciousness is connected to one aspect of this version of self, and then they turn back to their human identity, and then another aspect, and then their human identity. Thus playing and embodying their multidimensional and past, parallel, present timelines simultaneously in their human existence by switching back and forth. That's 30%. Then we have 28%, which source is saying that because of the experience of that person, because of the traumatic experience and the imprint and the disassociation, that them leaving, that astral body leaving the physical body. Again, remember the imagery of the balloon, helium balloon. It's left, but it's not gone, right? It's detached. It's still attached to a cord. You have a cord that attaches you to your body. It's silver. This creates space for other entities that vibrate and resonate, especially if this is a huge unresolved trauma or wound. And this being is open energetically for there to be energies and entities that can attach to that individual. And thus you experience that switch in personality. This is, source is saying this is from the viewpoint and standpoint from a medical perspective, where that personality is such a drastic split, where you have like the soft, sweet person, and then you have this identity or personality that comes out that's very dangerous and harmful. These are often lower vibrational entities. So that's 28%. The first one was 31%. That brings us to what, y'all? Can y'all do some math for me? 59%. That leaves a remaining 41%. Bring me back to the Akashic Records. Sources highlighting here that the remaining 40% are not in one group in terms of the root cause of DID. But it's actually an experience of confusion, of the different aspects of their self and identity that are fighting to be seen and heard. We all know alter egos, where a person has constructed an egoic identity, and these are merely thought forms, energetic thought forms that have been constructed within a being that they can switch to and embody. But when this is done unconsciously, and one has constructed identities that they are not aware of in their thought forms, or have even incarnated into lineages that have identities that have been passed down, that have not been properly attuned to that individual's being for whatever reason it may be. I'm hearing maleficent craft. This contributes to DID. And so in this case, sources highlighting with a green marker boldly that the medicine for those in this last group involves picking up and letting go, detaching these thought forms and energetic thought forms from that person's being, as they are not divinely rightfully theirs. And if it's in the unconscious, something that's unconscious being done, understanding the integration of these parts of self. For example, when I am channeling, I can tap into my inner child and channel my inner child consciously and at will. I can also channel my inner parents consciously at will. I can channel all these other identities I have within me, but if I were to do it unconsciously and without control, it would seem as if I was tapping into different personalities when these are merely different aspects, unconsciously created and brought forth. These disorders are because of a detachment or separation of one's energetic body or soul from their being, from their physical body, from the entirety of their body, as well as because of the shifts between the different aspects and versions of self that exist within the ego. Remember, everything that exists externally exists within. And so if you can imagine that, within you have the entirety of the universe, because you are source and source is the universe. And you have certain particular codings If someone has access to that unconsciously and then they don't have power over how they switch and in which way they switch, they can experience these happenings that are thought to be a mental health illness or disorder, but are merely, yes, sometimes it is caused by imbalances in the physical body, but predominantly most of these disorders have an energetic and spiritual cause, as everything has an underlying energetic and spiritual cause that can manifest itself into a outwardly mental or physical chronic illness or mental health. And thus something that happens to one's body or one's being that you experience can thus express itself through the energetic. And so I'll wrap up there and hope that this provided you with some insight regarding dissociative disorders from an energetic and spiritual perspective, and unveiling that and understanding what are some potential medicines, practices, exercises that can be used. I have done many soul retrievals on myself to call back soul fragments and had to learn how to ground myself into my physical body because my astral body was not as connected to my physical form, and thus it left space for other energies and entities. And so because that has been remedied, I can speak from experience as well as channel source to provide you with a deeper understanding of what it actually is happening on that energetic, subtle energy body level. And with that, I bid you well. I hope whenever you are, you take care deeply. I don't take you for granted, so definitely don't take yourself for granted. I love you. Be well and go in peace.